SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
In need of a new roof? Look no further than Mike's Economy Roofing. Locally owned and operated, Mike's Economy Roofing is your go-to for quality shingle roof replacements. Don't wait. Call Mike today at 601-757-6748 for that complete new roof you've been dreaming of.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Mississippi.
Everything gonna be all right this morning.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Woo! Now, when I was a young boy, at the age of 5, my mother said I was gonna be the greatest man alive.
Amen.
But now I'm a man.
I feel like you've got to interject that at some point in this song. That's the way it works. Good morning on a Friday morning. We are ready to rock and roll on this Friday morning. Here on Mornings, Dave Hughes in the booth, as always. My buddy Lance Tolbert is here. How you doing this morning, man?
Oh, it's good to see you, man. It's been a while.
I know.
Nothing's happened since last we spoke.
No. That was week before last, and it's just been really calm.
Laid back. No sports to discuss. Weather's just been perfect.
No,
Politics, so boring.
Look, I want to tell you the weather down, right here in my neck of the woods, even down here in Southwest Mississippi, right over at Tylertown, not very far from where I live. Nasty stuff, and interesting weather facts are continuing to come out about that storm system that came through. And one of those, I don't know if you saw this. It came out yesterday. Covington County, they had 2 tornadoes and the paths crossed. It makes an X out in the woods.
Goodness.
Which means there is one specific spot that got hit by 2 tornadoes within 40 minutes.
That's highly improbable, wouldn't you say?
That doesn't happen. It just does not happen.
Lightning striking in the same place, they say, doesn't do that twice. But I mean, you wouldn't think a tornado would cross paths like that without destructing itself or something. But man, that's brutal.
It was just not a good time for anybody, and the cleanup efforts and the recovery efforts continue, and our heart goes out to them as they continue to deal with this all over the state, everywhere that a tornado was hit. Of course, I'm focused on Southwest Mississippi because, well, number one, it was bad. One of those was an EF4, but the entire state, we dealt with this everywhere. So heart and thoughts certainly go out to everybody dealing with anything to do with that. Well, now that we've started on an upper, yeah.
Such is life sometimes, though, right?
I want you, by the way, and I'm going to give you a little pre-warning here, Lance. I'll give you a little advance warning to get ready for this at some point. I want to talk about the fact that, no one but you is going to understand what I'm talking about when I say that today is a triple witching day.
Yeah. Options and all the goodies.
There's a little bit of money tied up in options that's coming due today. And it's, I think, $4.7 trillion.
Yeah, it usually it's one of those days where there's a lot made up about it. And, 4.5 trillion triple witching gives investors, a little bit of a worry when you got that amount of money plugged into the system. And options, things that are, they're rights to do something. They're not obligations if you, it's not like a stock. So, I mean, it's paper. And, a lot of things unwind on this day. And a lot of things can expire, and a lot of money gets – and I always say, nobody loses money. It just ends up in somebody else's pocket. It's not like they had a bonfire and burn it. It just transfers. So
It's just like everything else in our financial system. It's made up.
Yeah. And a lot of this is my experience with it over the many years. There's a lot built up into many things. And that does rattle the cages a bit and gets everybody fired up. It sells subscriptions. long term, generally, if you look at the long term, and that's over long periods of time, the upward momentum is evident. But you're going to get peaks and valleys and the troughs in there. And if you like to play those things, some people do, and they do very well. But timing is very difficult to do in the market. But these types of days, I can assure you, the computer systems are programmed. All those multi-million-dollar systems, they know what's going on, and that's one of the reasons this exists, because everything converges at a certain time on a certain day, and there's a lot of automation, and that does build into it sometimes a lot of the worry about, well, will the computer take over? Will Skynet? Will they short everything? Well, maybe. Well, you never know.
Well, let me ask you this, and there's no simple answer to this, but I'm going to go ahead and do it now. Do you think there is a certain amount of stress that we impose on ourselves for no good reason?
Sure, yeah.
It's made up. It's something that keeps everybody stirred up. You're going to see a lot of headlines today if you're online about Triple Witching Day.
Mm-hmm. And it happens all the time. I mean, it happens. It's pretty.
It's
regular.
Like 4 times a year, isn't it?
Pretty regular. Yeah, it's not something that you got to worry about, because it is. It's a big chunk of your contracts tied to stocks and indexes and exchange traded funds. All those mature, and then somebody's got to write new ones.
I'm really starting to become more of a proponent of the savings in my sock theory, where you just stuff it in a sock and put it down in the back of the drawer and forget it's there, because at least that's a lot less stressful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
especially right now.
Yeah, it's hard to make sense of it. If you're not a professional and you're not doing this every day, the best thing to do is sit back and relax a little bit. Don't get too excited. Emotions are never a good way to go about navigating your finances,
or anything for that matter. Exactly. And that's part of our problem. Everything, and I'm going to say this, and ironically enough, some people are going to get emotional about me saying this. Everything on earth is not an emotional catastrophe for somebody. Yeah. It doesn't work that way. Sometimes you have to just look at things when they happen, if you don't like it, if you don't agree with it, and say, well, that stinks. What's for supper, honey? And then go on with your life. You don't sit here and obsess over it and wind up going out and firebombing a Tesla, or wind up, doing something ridiculous. I saw one woman yesterday calling that we need MAGA-only sections in restaurants.
Yeah.
Come on. We are, I'm afraid.
Too much emotion.
Yes, we're a little too far down that path.
Too wound
up. Thinking everything is a life or death situation.
And you're seeing that a lot too on the left. And I worry a bit about some of the left and our friends over there, because it's an instability when. And I want to, you're going to hear that. Well, you stormed the Capitol. That's a long time. I'm talking about what's happening now. I'm talking about 4 years ago, and I understand that that's a reality. But we're seeing a lot of emotion that's pent up, and a lot of it is people that just hate the right so much that there's no other way to see things. And and that's what you got to get away from, in my opinion. Is there's no real place for that, and I know that's what makes politics interesting sometimes, and makes sporting events interesting. But that's sports. You look at sports; everybody's tied to the emotional aspect of it. You got your favorite team, and you live and die by that. Figuratively, politics is much more gray matter in there. No one is going to be exactly like you, and you hope they're not. That's what makes people different. Everyone has an opinion, and it's okay to respect other people's opinion and not hate them for it. It's okay. You can say, well, I don't agree with this person, but I respect that. Yeah. And we're so far from that it's I hope we can get back to it, because that's what you're seeing is the lack of respect of other people's opinions. They're taking precedent over common sense and logic.
What we have lost is the ability to look at someone else who is doing something stupid, saying something stupid, has a stupid opinion, is living their life in a stupid way, and go, well, that's stupid.
Well, remember, you could have gotten canceled for that.
Yes,
if you weren't on the correct side of that argument, you could have been canceled.
That is part of the problem, because You should be allowed to do stupid things. We're all human beings. And I'm sorry, what you're doing does not directly affect me. We have to get back to a little bit of the mindset of, okay, this is a big thing. Everybody's telling me I should be all twisted up over this. What direct effect does this have on me? And not in terms of, well, it could be horrible. He's destroying our democracy. Hey, they're doing all these horrible things, and it's just affecting everything. No. You specifically. Your checkbook, your life, your job, your family, how does it directly affect you? And if you can't come up with a specific thing, wind down about it a bit. It's not as important as you want to think it is, because that allows you to ascribe a certain amount of self-importance to yourself. Amen. And now I'm getting into psychology, so I'm glad the break music started, because once I get going on that, I'll be here for the rest of the day. Nobody's looking for that. When we come back, let's get started on this Friday morning and try to take care of a little bit of business as we continue on mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. Keep it here.
With Richard Cross. What's up?
Let's get the show going.
Super Talk Mississippi.
And that is going to be our whole hour this morning will be devoted to sports.
Well, there's nothing going on.
Yeah.
I don't know why. We had 72 games last night. How many teams are we gonna reach the point where every team just makes it to the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, it's going to be invitation only, but they'll send out like 300 invitations. You get a little postcard says you're in. And
yes,
everybody's going to be waiting for that, like you didn't know it was coming. Oh, yay, we made it. But
well,
no, this isn't a sports section, but we've had a lot of folks that have really demanded that we transition this whole first hour to just sports, and then maybe lottery top and bottom of every segment. So we're going to maybe try that format out for you today. No, I'm kidding, but I had to I'm going to mess with you guys a little bit this morning and play the ESPN intro for the whole first hour, just to appease our naysayers that we've had some fun with this week.
Well, when it's the most important thing to you, it's the only important thing.
Well,
and there's a lot of people that have a lot invested in their bracket.
Oh man, I got asked if I was going to do one. I'm like, man, I've never even done one of the brackets for the NCAA tournament. I don't know. I guess Ole Miss has just never really been that involved in it that much, and so you don't get that excited. That's been my team in college. So, but do you fill out a bracket? Do you get involved in?
No,
not really.
No, I'm not a basketball guy.
Yeah.
Baseball. I love baseball. Love baseball.
Baseball been very good to me.
Yes. Football. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Basketball, it's just not my thing. There's nothing wrong with it. I can appreciate it. I can sit back and appreciate it, but I have never said, you know what, I want to watch me a good basketball game.
Well, I love a good, a pitching duel in baseball. Those are always fun, and people seem to hate that at times. They love the offense, but in basketball, I'm a big fan of like the 10-9. If you can get a game where it's going 4 quarters, and it's just so much enthrallment there and enjoyment, and it ends like 10-9. That's the kind of basketball game I'm in. I love those, the real barn burners.
even in baseball, see, everyone focuses on offense, not defense. Offense fills seats. Defense wins championships. Yeah. The best example of the difference between the two is at the end of the year, the people that have done the best job fielding at a fielding position get a Golden Glove award.
Yeah,
and it's
huge. I mean, to me, that's the thing that most when you're looking at sports in the world where you have errors, you have all of them have bad plays, but in baseball, the error is so magnified. It can take one little bitty mess up to blow up a game, and routinely that happens. You see teams that just play so well, college and high school and that, and then you have the little piece of kitty litter gets in the way of a hop, and then the whole game it just derails. And it's one of the few sports where that actually happens, where something so small can have such a grand impact on the outcome.
That's my favorite part in baseball. It's the only sport I know of where you can have a vicious hat-throwing argument over whether or not the dirt was raked properly. It happens. But the point I'm making here is you get the Golden Glove at the end of the year. Well, you were one of the best at fielding. On the offensive side, you have the Home Run Derby. Yeah. It's a special event all by itself on one day, and we've got a big trophy, and there's sponsorships and all of this. You did a good job catching, so here's your award. There's a difference in the way we treat these things.
Oh, a huge difference. And I'm not as big a fan of the shift to offense in the baseball side of things. I know it makes the game more interesting and people see the records and the big home runs and all that, but it trickles down a lot. And this isn't like a soapbox really, but somebody that coming from somebody that played it and coached it a bit. You just see a deterioration in fundamentals a lot of times where you're teaching velocity and you're teaching spin rates and launch angles and all these things that have zero, matter in a game. What matters is can you get a guy out or can you put the bat on the ball? Can you make the play? Doesn't really matter how fast the ball travels or what spin is on it. Those are great for talking about stuff. But I think you get into where you're coaching that's where you're getting away from some of the things that make baseball, the nuances of it, where you're just waiting for the big home run. Well, I mean, you can also do a lot of other things to get a run across, and it takes a lot of that through a long season. That's why I guess the game is probably more fun to play than watch, is because the nuances unfold so much throughout a season, and everything happens in 165 games, and anything you can imagine is going to happen.
Yeah. Come up with the most bizarre thing that could possibly happen. Oh, it's coming. Just give it a couple of weeks.
It's going to happen.
But I think that may be why I haven't ever really connected with basketball is because in baseball I understand those nuances and the stuff behind it. In football I understand the nuances. Basketball I couldn't draw up a basketball play, much less explain the nuances of the game to say they're there. I'm not disparaging it at all.
They're very detailed, and I have no idea what's going on. It's like soccer. They run plays, but I don't know what's going on.
I guess I'm just not high enough level. I'm not a high enough IQ to get it. I don't know, but I've never really connected with that side of it, and as a result, I've just never connected with the game itself. It's a great game.
Yeah, well, and it's very fast, and you got so much happening now. You had the first four, San Diego State, North Carolina. That game was one that was going to be important because Ole Miss is going to play the winner of that. North Carolina won that one fairly easily, almost 30-point win there over San Diego State. So Ole Miss will tie up with North Carolina. That will be the pairing there, and that's going to be on the 21st, which I think is today.
Yes, it is.
And that's going to be a game that takes place at 3:05 on the TNT. So that happens, and Auburn was victorious over Alabama State. I don't think anybody really worried about that, but it was a 20-point victory for Auburn. Alabama State, a really good showing in that game. And so you got Auburn advancing. Texas A&M beat Yale by 9 yesterday, so they advance, and they'll have Michigan. And there's other games that have happened. I'm just trying to pick some of the ones that probably have some value to our listeners here. Alabama has Robert Morris today. Sounds like a cigarette company, but I'm sure it's not. March 21st being today, 11:40. Got a breakfast game on True TV, wherever that is. I've seen it before. I just don't know where that one happens to be. BYU beat VCU on the same side of the bracket as Bama. They advanced. They play Wisconsin, who beat Montana. and that was 85-66. Mississippi State has Baylor today in that 8-9 matchup, which will pit old State, the Dogs, and Chris Jan's team. If they win that one, chances are they're going to be facing Duke, who is a number 1 seed.
Yeah, Duke is a tough draw.
Yeah, Mount St. Mary's, doubt they're going to be the Cinderella, but if it happens, I'm sure Mississippi State would greatly appreciate Mount St. Mary's knocking Duke off today. Duke and Mount St. Mary's play at 1:50 on CBS. And then Mississippi State and Baylor, 11:15 CBS. So got some good ball games going on right there, packed in. Quite a few others. Houston won easily over SIUE, 78-40. SIUE probably could have just stayed at the house on that one.
Yeah. Well, we always have those, and that to me is the biggest argument against what I was talking about and joking
it drives
about
me
at the beginning.
crazy.
This is supposed to be the best of the best, the absolute elite. There shouldn't be any charity gimme berths in the NCAA tournament.
And there are in baseball. It drives me crazy with baseball and basketball, where teams that have losing records and losing conference records. And I know you got to field this team of 64 or 68 with the extras and that, but I mean, come on. I mean, if you can't have a winning record in your conference and then you go win your conference tournament, which is a 4 or 5 games movie, I don't see how that should be more important. The conference tournament win over an entire season of playing if you played poorly, but you go play well for a week and you get a postseason. I don't like it, but I'm sure many people out there will disagree with that opinion. I don't care. That's my opinion.
Let me put it like this. Lance and Uncle Dave believe they're handing these things out like lollipops.
They are. And you know, it costs a lot of money for these schools to mobilize and get everybody there. And, you know, and I know it's exciting for certain teams and places that probably don't have much tradition and history. And I get it. It does expand the sport a bit, but it also does water down the significance of the season a bit. Arkansas was victorious over Kansas. That was a pretty big W there. Arkansas playing in there toward the end of the season really had to play some good ball. They did. They beat a good team in Kansas 79-72. They advance. St. John's is who they'll play. We got a little bit more for you on the other side. And some goodies and all that stuff.
We can just do scores of the opening day of the NCAA tournament, and that'll fill the rest of the show if we want to.
Okay, that's what I was saying. We could do the ESPN intro there for the whole hour. We're not going to do that, but just messing with you guys.
Why not at this point? They've had different versions. We could shake it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Just to confuse evereverybody, we ought to do the NFL primetime theme, just to throw everyone off.
I can find here,
yeah, that, and I like that theme. We will continue on this Friday morning with, I promise, eventually something other than basketball scores, but we'll have some more of those too here on mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. Keep it here.
Grab another cup of coffee and start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross here on Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome back to Morning Super Talk Mississippi. Dave Hughes and back in the booth. It's Lance Tolbert.
Hey, that's good there. I like that.
Well, I had to work it in somehow. Come on, Berman was an institution in and of himself.
How many iconic songs have there been? What was your favorite of all the? Was it the Hank Williams Jr.?
That was good.
Pretty good back when he was the keynote speaker for that deal. That Fox one's pretty excellent, though.
The Fox theme is good. I'm not as much of a fan of the Carrie Underwood song. I like it. It's good. It just isn't quite up to that same level to me for some reason.
Doesn't have enough techno to it.
Maybe
like,
that's it.
The robotic side or whatever that twing is that you get in some of those intros. Well, you have the ladies' side of the bracket, too, that's rolling along, and we'll get kicking today. And some big games there for some local folks here in Mississippi and those that are alumni of Ole Miss and Mississippi State. You had that first four. Well, that happens on the ladies' side, too. UC San Diego and Southern played. Southern won that one. Columbia and Washington played. Columbia's in. Iowa State and Princeton played, and Iowa State put it on Princeton. And then you had William and Mary and High Point, and William and Mary found their way in. So that set the field. And come on, get off of there. That's what I need you to do. Ole Miss will have Ball State today, 5 o'clock p.m. ESPNU game. Ole Miss is favored in that one, 13.5 points. Mississippi State, again, got one of those kind of draws on the ladies' side, 8-9 matchup. That puts them in touch with Southern California, the number one team on that side. If Southern Cal wins their game against UNC Greensboro, and Mississippi State beats California, which will not be an easy task. California is going to be favored in that one, 2.5. So that is a 4:30 game, ESPN2. So, that gets you started on the ladies' side, and we've covered the men's side of the action, and wouldn't be fair if we didn't talk a little baseball, considering there's some big games going on this weekend. Southern Miss, they got some ball to play, but they put it on the Rebs, and the Rebs have a 3-game losing streak dating back to the Saturday game against Arkansas, where they got pummeled 12-3, lost the Sunday game 12-9. And then got beat by Southern Miss and Pearl in a 6-2 loss. So Southern hurt the feelings of the Rebels. The Rebels got to go on the road to Columbia, Missouri, and play a ball game today at 6 p.m. and try to get back on the right track there. Hunter Elliott, I'm sure, will be the Friday night guy, and we'll go from there. Ole Miss 1-2 in SEC play, and a skid of 3 right now that they'd like to see stop. Mississippi State a little bit different. They had a midweek big-time W versus Jackson State, 16-3. Got swept, though. Could have won every game they had against Texas and Starkville. They will go on the road to a very good Oklahoma team, number 10 in the country. Be a great test for Mississippi State on the road. That game will kick off, lace up and ready to roll at 6:30 p.m. today. And so I think Pico Cone will get the rubber for that one and go from there. Southern Miss, again, they had a great weekend last weekend. Old Dominion opened up at Sun Belt play with a 2-1 series victory. Lost the Sunday game 4-1. Was a game they could have taken, just didn't do it. That's the Sunday for you sometimes. They rebounded well and put it on Ole Miss with 6-2, it says here, in the midweek. And then you got UL Monroe here. They go over to Monroe, Louisiana for another Sun Belt weekend. They'll get that ball game started at 6 p.m. or thereabouts. Usually baseball's a minute or two off on that. They're not perfect on that first pitch, but Southern Miss ready to roll and looking good this year. Delta State, well, they had an ugly one in midweek. They had a 14-4 loss in 8 innings against Arkansas Tech, but they hope to get back on the winning ways. They had a 2 out of 3 weekend against Valdosta State, which was a conference weekend. Lost the Sunday game, lost the midweek, but they got University of West Alabama this week in Livingston, Alabama. Mississippi College will have Trevecca Nazarene, and they're at 3 p.m. today at Mississippi College. Beautiful facility there if you're in the neighborhood and want to go watch some good baseball. And as well, William Carey seemingly always has a good season. They are really rolling. I didn't have a chance to cover this during the week, but I wanted to because it was kind of one of these impressive things, Dave. They had Bruton Parker College last weekend. The first game they played them, they beat them 31-17. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. So you go to
defensive struggle.
Yes, you go to Mount Vernon, Georgia. You show up. You score 31 points. No, this runs. Oh yeah, this is baseball. Yeah.
Yes.
You score 31 runs. That means you cross the plate 31 times in a game. The other team scored 17, so pretty good scoring festival there. The Saturday game, not quite as many fireworks at 11-7. Carey wins that one, pretty easily, you would say. And then you get to the doubleheader after you've already played a game on Saturday, and you go, okay, well, we've won 2 of these games, and we scored 31 runs in the first one, 11 in the second one. Well, let's go out there and see what we can put together. Well, they went out and won 33-6 in 7 innings. So yeah, you Carrie, obviously you have an offense. I want to come see you personally after scoring that amount of runs in a weekend. And on a Saturday doubleheader, you scored 44 runs. That's how many times you crossed the plate on Saturday. 44 times, man. Goodness gracious.
Look, there are teams that don't score 44 runs in a season.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was amazing. And I've been waiting for this opportunity to cover that because you don't see that very often. William Carey, though, is one of those types of programs you really just don't want to mess around with in baseball. They're really good, always have been. And it's just one of those things. So if you're available, they did win the midweek game Wednesday against Louisiana State University of Alexandria. They beat them 7-6, a real barn burner there. They have University of Mobile, which is Mobile, Alabama. It's like they need to tell you that. Is there another Mobile, or is it like the gas station college? They think they got to distinguish between. But
I'm sure there is somewhere, but I've never heard of it. No one has.
Yeah, there's one, and it's Mobile. But that will be first pitch at 6 p.m. today in Hattiesburg. So if you're in the area in Hattiesburg, get over and see the Crusaders play a little ball. They are something special. Also, and round it off a little bit, got some JUCO baseball. And that's always a huge piece of our equation here in Mississippi. It's just it's loaded with talent, left and right, always. And we don't have one of those teams this year that is going through most of the season undefeated or with one loss. Got a bunch of good teams out there, but really just Jones, Meridian, Pearl River, and East Central seem to be kind of leading the pack with Mississippi Gulf Coast, Copiah, Lincoln, Northeast, and Holmes kind of right there also. Most of those teams have pretty good records as well. So just kind of giving about half of the Mississippi JUCO world there is playing some really good baseball. Another half needs to kind of tighten it up a little bit, but get down to Northwest Community College. They're only 2-4 in conference, but they are 19-8 overall. So another good team with a 70% win percentage there. And that'll round out really what I have for you today in the form of sports. And we won't do the late segment today, so we were a little more thorough this on the starting point. It had a lot to cover, though, so thank y'all for bearing with us on that.
I'm still stuck on the William Carey thing.
Isn't that amazing?
Here's my question, and maybe we can get to the bottom of this, because that is a stunningly impressive offensive showing by William Carey. Great job, by the way. Nothing but brags here. But is it possible that the opposing team and the officials weren't really paying attention and didn't notice? Was William Carey hitting off the tee? I mean, I just have to wonder. They didn't notice him bring it out there and set it up and then whack it? Because that's incredible.
It is. I'm one of those, and you'll hear me complain at times. I don't like complaining about umpiring and refereeing and all that, but I do think in college baseball that the zone has become much more major league-like. And I don't think that's fair to 99% of the athletes playing college baseball. There's a 1 or 2% out there that probably works for because they're that good, the Paul Skeens and folks like that of the world. But the zone is set up so that pitchers have to throw it into a shoebox in a spot that's really advantageous for the hitter. And so some of these games can get ugly fast, and they do. And you look at them going, this isn't healthy, And again, I love the fact that you got a team that can score 30-something runs, but at the end of the day, how many pitchers did you roll through? How many wasted pitches was there in an outing like that, where obviously it was a hard time getting the ball in the right spot? And sometimes that right spot's just a little too small for a lot of the teams that you watch. It makes the game very sloppy, and at times it does drag on too much. So,
just a little bit, yeah. It just seems a bit.
It makes it like you're watching a golf match at times.
Yes, again, it's impressive and taking nothing away from William Carey. Fantastic job, guys.
But widen the zone a bit, guys. Come on.
You literally couldn't get it better than that. But that sheet of paper, typing paper you're using to establish the zone, you're right. Let's at least go to poster paper, like a half sheet, something.
Let's go to a little bit wider here, or a little taller, one way or the other.
When we come back, well, we're going to go with luck of a different kind, because it's time to talk about the Mississippi Lottery, and we'll do that next on Super Talk Mississippi on Mornings. Keep it here.
Take a deep dive into the news and debates driving the day, all on your ride to work. Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi.
Welcome back. Super Talk Mississippi, and it is time for the segment brought to you by the Mississippi Lottery. And this is your ticket to jump up and down and go woohoo and wake up everybody in the house, because you might be about to find out some really good news with the numbers for this week. We'll start with Lotto America as usual. We had no jackpot winner on Wednesday night's drawing. Those numbers were 4, 8, 26, 34, 36. The star ball was 6. The all-star bonus multiplier was 2. The next drawing is tomorrow. The estimated jackpot for that for Lotto America, $27.06 million. Estimated cash value, if you take the cash payout option, $12.62 million. Powerball continuing to grow. It's getting up there. The estimated jackpot for tomorrow night's drawing, $444 million. The cash value on that one, $207.2 million. Last drawing was Wednesday. Those numbers were 8, 11, 21, 49, 59. The Powerball was 15, and the Power Play multiplier was 2. Wednesday, the double play drawing on Wednesday, the numbers were 7, 15, 36, 40, 56, and the Powerball was 8. Mega Millions also getting up there, not quite up to the level of Powerball. Powerball's in the lead here, but no jackpot winner again on Tuesday's drawing. That jackpot is now at $324 million for tonight's drawing. The estimated cash value there, $150.6 million. If you take that lump sum cash payout, win, not if, when you win. The numbers on Tuesday night that were drawn, 27, 28, 31, 32, 33, and the Mega Ball was 24. The Mega Plier number, by the way, was 3. And for Mississippi Match 5, last night, the numbers, we've got some numerical sequences going on here. Mississippi Match 5, last night's numbers, 20, 21, 22, 25 and 33. No winner last night. The estimated jackpot tonight, $52,000. Cash 3, Cash 4, Fireball, and your Cash Pop. For the midday drawing for Cash 3, the $500 game, the numbers were 2, 5, and 4. The evening numbers, 8, 5, and 3. Cash 4, the $5,000 game, the midday drawing was 8, 3, 9, 9. The evening drawing was 7, 7, 1, 3. Fireball, midday, they pulled a 3. Evening, they pulled a 6. And for the Cash Pop, midday drawing yesterday was 15. The evening drawing was 10. The Mississippi Lottery, this is kind of cool. The St. Patty's Day Parade, marching with the Jackson State University Sonic Boom of the South on Saturday. So you're invited out to enjoy that. Who knows? There might be, throws. There won't be, but there could be. The Pink Panther Diamond Tripler bonus promotion. The third drawing was held yesterday. We have our winners for that. There was a $15,000 winner in Petal, Mississippi, a $10,000 winner in Starkville, a $5,000 winner in Jackson, and $100 digital gift card winners from Shannon, Mississippi, Grand Bay, Alabama, and Aberdeen, Mississippi. All of the winners will be notified with certified mail. You're not going to get a phone call. You're not going to get a text with a link. They don't do that. The next drawing, Thursday, April 3rd. You have until 11:59 on Monday, March the 31st, to enter all of your non-winning tickets into the second chance drawing, and all of those go into the final second chance promotional drawing for $100,000. You can go to mslottery.com to get more information on the draw dates and the rules and the prizes and all the things that you can win. Just because you don't win right at the front where you scratch it off doesn't mean you're not a winner. There's still more chances to come as long as you enter those non-winning tickets. Winners from yesterday, cash for. Some nice winners today. Lexington, a Lexington man won $845 on cash for. Carrier man won $2,600 on a cash for ticket. Cash pop, a couple of $1,250 winners. One in Jackson, the other in Liberty. And Lotto America winners, let's see, a Florida man won, $1,000? Florida man, rather, I should say. Also a Pearl man. Match 5, a man in Avon won $800. And a Horn Lake woman, my new best friend, possibly an aunt I've lost touch with, won $730,000 on Match 5 yesterday. Bought her ticket at Kroger. Get there early. The line will form quickly. Hernando man won $800 on Mega Millions yesterday. Scratch-offs. Greenwood man won $2,500 on the $5 Big Money Bingo. $10 Extreme Payday. I'm a Cool Man won $5,000, and the 200X $20 Cash Blitz ticket. A Florence man won.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on this show are not the opinions of TeleSouth Communications, its management, or advertisers.
From Duck Hill to Alligator, Mississippians start their day the right way. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat. The human drama of athletic competition. This is ABC's Wide World.
You got to hear the sponsor.
Brought to you by Lincoln Mercury. Nobody has more kinds of cars for more kinds of people.
Yeah, Lincoln Mercury. Nobody has more kinds of cars for more kinds of people. I don't know if that was the best business model of all time. And this was one of my favorites. And thank you, Amanda Pike County, for recommending the ABC, the original Agony of Defeat song and the intro there. But this was one of my favorites. You got the guy going down. If you haven't seen it, go visualize the guy starting at the top of the slalom, the great slalom, and this is the play-by-play of his beautiful dismount, whatever you call it, as you're going down here. You go.
Now we go to Vinko Bogatas, the Yugoslavian, the youngster. His inexperience, he fell on his first jump.
So
a lot of speed in that track. Look at him go! Oh! Oh, baby.
Oh, baby.
They enjoyed that way too much, didn't they?
I love the way they go, yeah, well, he fell in his first attempt. This guy didn't even make it to the jump on the second attempt. I mean, he goes down on his butt and flies into the crowd, knocks out. Oh, my God. I mean, it's a disaster.
And became, I would argue, because of that intro to Wide World of Sports, probably the most iconic skiing wipeout in history.
Oh, man, what a wipeout. Oh, and on this day in history also, we bypassed that, but today is the day that we boycotted the Moscow Olympics, as well, at least the day that Jimmy Carter told the Olympic team, hey, you're not going to Russia for this deal. You're sitting it at the house. So what actually happened, that was the 79 invasion of Afghanistan by the Soviets. In total, 65 nations refused to participate in those games, whereas 80 countries sent athletes to compete. So this was the day we let the folks know that had worked so hard, hey, you're not going to get to compete.
You don't get to do this. Have a seat.
Because of politics. because of politics.
Yeah, politics gets in the way of a lot of stuff. It really does. This hour of Mornings with Richard Cross brought to you by MWG Employer Services. Running a business, of course, is tough. Don't have to tell business owners that. They already know. If you're struggling with HR, benefits, and payroll, you're not alone. That's where MWG Employer Services comes in. They can give you a full range of employer services and a custom plan that fits you and your business. Call today at 601-206-7966, or you can go to mwgemployerservices.com for more information. Big day yesterday with the income tax elimination debate / vote. Had a big day yesterday. Something passed. Last night, I think it was last night. Let me pull it up here. Just
you also had the
sure.
turkey stamp. The turkey stamp bill got signed into law.
Turkey stamp bill got signed. Yeah, it was last night. It was about 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. Governor Reeves posted on X and said, "Congratulations to the Mississippi legislature on passing historic tax reform and eliminating the income tax. What a great day for Mississippi taxpayers." Tremendous thanks and credit has to go to Jason White and Trey Lamar, who have been working tirelessly on HB1. I'm looking forward to receiving this bill tomorrow, meaning today. Said parentheses, "I hear there are those who desire further tweaks to this law, and those can certainly be considered in future legislation." Close parentheses. Today is a day for celebration. So the debate and the argument yesterday was whether or not he would sign it. That tweet he put out last night kind of makes you think, yeah, he's going to sign it. Mm-hmm. Having said that, there might be, to use the old Western analogy, Dixon's not in the room, but still it'll fit here. There might be a hitch in the giddy up. Here's why I say that. WAPT is reporting this morning, and I haven't looked at this. I haven't verified it, but apparently there's a typo in the bill as it was passed. According to them, instead of saying revenue growth over spending reaches 85% of the cost of a drop in income tax, the bill says 0.85%. A slight difference, if that's true. State Representative John Hines told WAPT that if that stays as it is, $2.1 billion would immediately be taken out of the general fund. So might need to, do they still make whiteout?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, you get that bottle and just cover over that decimal point and you're good. Just one little typo, just cover it over and send it on. It'll be fine. So I'm not sure what's going to happen with that. Like I said, I haven't verified that other than WAPT's reporting. They usually do a good job there. That could be a slight delay. I'm not sure what the process would be. Will we have to go through and hold another vote on the modified version?
You'd think that there would be a much easier way to fix that.
You would think so. I'm not sure. I know there's been a lot of discussion and debate about whether or not line item vetoes would be accessible. I'm not sure about modifications and changes to things like this. It's very minor. It's 1 decimal point, but still, yeah, that may need to be taken a look at before we get to the actual signature point of this process.
Yeah, who's the author on that thing?
About 712 people, it feels like. This has been the discussion for months now, and it's been a complicated process to work through, and they've done a good job of meeting in the middle and getting something passed and sent to the governor, but might want to go back and double-check that just to make sure that the decimal isn't there, because if it is, it's a slightly different...
Yeah.
There's a difference between 85% and 0.85%.
Oh, quite a bit, right?
So if that's the case, something has to be done. I honestly do not know what the process would be, because this is a very unique situation if that's true, where you get something, it's been discussed, it's been betted about, and you get to this point And then if you do have to go back and fix a typo while it's on the way to the governor's desk, what do? I'm not sure.
Fix it. I mean, if everybody, you had a pretty heavy consensus there as far as who voted, 92 to 27,
yes.
And that's
yes.
That's pretty strong. Number two, the gravy has been pretty easy to see now that the bill as they've negotiated is out. It moves income tax in the way that you're hoping for, and that's what reduces it by 0.25% each year until 2030. Then it reaches 3%, and from that point on, the tax would gradually drop depending on the gap between the state's actual revenue and its expenses until this is eventually eliminated in its entirety. So there are ways to get there that are not just, raising revenues. You can also cut. We haven't heard a lot about that, have we, Dave? But,
No, we haven't. But that is obviously a discussion for another session. But we'll get there.
But you're dealing with
that.
the big $20 billion, the shortfall that is not today in PERS. It is something that happens over time. So there seems to be a lot of argument about that, or at least disagreement about what actually is going on with PERS, and that has been beat up and tossed around enough that I'm sure everyone understands that there's no way you're going to make up $20 billion tomorrow. That's something that happens over time. And a lot of the debate is saying, well, this is only going to put $400 million overall into PERS. I'm not sure that's actually accurate. So as you're looking at these articles, just beware that no one is going to try to put $20 billion into PERS tomorrow if this passes. So it's, and this is a gradual thing, and hopefully they've put the triggers in there that, as it says, if things change for the revenue of the state, then you don't have to cut anymore.
Yeah, and, the thing is, and you hit a really important point there, I believe, it's not all or nothing immediately. Yes, the quicker we get on fixing the problem that's looming with PERS in the future, the easier it is to fix, the less painful it is. You don't want to have to fix that all in one swing.
That'll hurt.
That's going to sting. So the earlier you get on it, the better off you are. But we don't have to do it all at one time. It doesn't have to be one big bite of the apple. That's how you choke to death. You have to nibble. And we've got to come up with a good nibbling plan moving forward. Yes, the eating an apple theory of economics. That's perfect.
Keeps the doctor away.
Possibly. It also keeps the doctor away if you take the apple core and just chunk it at him. Coming up after the break, we've got Sid Salter joining us, political analyst. He'll have some things to say. He'll have some insight on this whole deal with the income tax reduction, and we'll get his thoughts on it when we return on SuperTalk Mississippi Mornings without Richard Cross on this Friday. Keep it here.
From the Mississippi, you're starting your day off right. Welcome to Mornings with Richard Cross here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back. Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. Dave Hughes here. And joining us now, you want to know something about politics? This is the gentleman to talk to. He is the Vice President for Strategic Communications and Director of Public Affairs at Mississippi State University. One of our favorite guests, Sid Salter, joins us. Sid, how you doing this morning, sir?
I'm well, Dave.
Now, yesterday was a big day. We finally got to seemingly the end of this process and got an income tax reduction plan passed. Talk about that for a minute. Tell me your impressions of what happened and how it happened.
Well, I think from a big picture standpoint, the income tax question has been rather testy between the House and Senate. Both chambers having strong opinions about the correct approach. The House, along with Governor Reeves, wanted a full elimination of the income tax and wanted it as quickly as possible. The Senate wanted a more measured approach that didn't progress as quickly. I think the uncertainty in Washington, D.C., the interruption of the flow of some federal funds to Mississippi, and I think people forget sometimes what a tremendous amount of dependence Mississippi has on federal funds. And so when that flow of funds gets interrupted, it does give state government pause about operating moving forward. So I think that helped to bring the two chambers together. They passed, both chambers passed what appears to me to be a very measured, reasonable approach to eventual full elimination of the income tax, which is something that the Republican majority in both chambers have wanted. They've just disagreed over the speed with it. Now, as to the bill and what transpired late yesterday, I heard y'all talking earlier this morning about what do they do. Well, they fix it because the legislature operates through the bills they actually pass, the language in the bill. And so it's a very literal process. So if those decimal points don't get moved, then we operate under the decimal points that are there. So they will have to fix it. That opens up the possibility of additional negotiation, and there'll very likely be some Hail Marys from both sides at the end. But I think generally you're looking at the version of the bill that will go to Governor Reeves, and I expect that he will sign it. I think it's particularly given what's going on in Washington, I think this is a really smart, savvy approach to accomplishing this. And there's a lot to unpack here. There's a lot of things this bill does. We've been talking for years about the revenue from the gas tax in terms of having enough money to maintain and build roads in Mississippi, and this is again a measured, phased-in approach of raising that revenue, and it provides additional funds that are just sorely needed. The grocery tax, dropping it from 7% to 5%. We've been writing about and discussing the grocery tax in Mississippi for, at least 25 years. And that is addressed in this. So you're getting road and bridge revenue. You're getting some relief on the grocery tax, which gets into regressive and progressive taxes. And then, the main goal of this is eventually eliminating what the governor and Speaker White have called the tax on work, the income tax. And so this has a path to full elimination of that. It also provides the ability to tap the brakes if the cuts were to be put in kind of willy-nilly. It gives us a chance to see what President Trump and Elon Musk and others are going to do that will impact federal funds coming to Mississippi. So I give this bill good reviews in that it's a measured way to accomplish what the majority in the legislature want to accomplish, and it addresses some critical needs in Mississippi at this point that have sort of been on the playing field for a long time with not much progress.
Well, it's interesting to me, and a lot of times we build things up because it feels like it just finally came together all at once, just in one day after months of wrangling. But that's kind of the way the political process works a lot of times, isn't it?
It is, and again, the House and the Senate, the majorities in both chambers are playing for the same team. They didn't disagree over the ultimate policy. They agreed on the schedule of it and the guardrails and the ability to tap the brakes. And so, this is a victory for Mississippi Republicans who have sought this for a long time. And, of course, it's delivered in such a way that even the Democratic opposition would basically say, if you're going to do this, this is the better of the options to implement this. So, like I said, I think it's a win-win for all of us in that we can do this in a measured and methodical way that gives us a chance to pause if we need to and take in the realities of the economy and of our relationship with the federal government.
Now, I know that first 25%, correct me if I'm wrong here, this goes into effect July 1st, but that first 25% reduction, does that go in starting July 1st, or is it next year?
I actually think it's next year, but again, I want to see the final version of the bill, which has yet to surface. I don't think much is going to change in this, but I wouldn't venture a firm statement on that till I see the final version.
That's what has seemingly been indicated as we have gotten down to the last part of this. And I think you're exactly right. There was some debate yesterday about how Governor Reeves would deal with this in terms of signing it, just letting it pass into law without his signature. That tweet he sent out last night tells me he's going to sign it when it hits his desk.
Well, that was, of course, my interpretation of that. And, one of the things that people in public office, there's a tendency to push your advantage as far as you can. But I think Governor Reeves has a bill in front of him that accomplishes a signature goal of his 2 terms. And I would really be surprised if he did not just let it become law, but become law with his signature.
Well, I would think at this point we have worked so long and so hard, and there's been so much effort put into this. I think you kind of want your name on it, don't you?
That would be my impression. Yes, absolutely.
100%. The big question now is, if we do in fact have this settled and this is done and this is getting signed and going into law, what in the heck are we going to talk about in the legislature? That's been the conversation all year.
There are always vexing problems confronting the legislature, and they'll move on from this one to the next one. But I do think that this has been the driver of almost all conversations, and the settling of this question has been somewhat of an impediment to other issues. And so I think this kind of clears the deck for moving on to different problems. And so a lot can happen in the last 2 weeks, 10 days of the session. And it also reduces the length of the shadow hanging over the question of whether we're moving to a special session. I wanted to also mention that this...
Well, can you hang on through the break?
Sure.
Fantastic. Sid Salter will take up more of his valuable time when we return and get the rest of the good stuff in here on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. Keep it here.
Segment of Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Want to know what's being said in the halls of the Capitol? You're in the right place. Mornings with Richard Cross continues on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back. Mornings on a Friday morning. Super Talk Mississippi. Dave Hughes here. Sid Salter with us, and I'm sorry, Sid, I had to cut you off because we were up against the break and didn't have a choice. I know you know how that works, but continue with what else you had to mention there.
One aspect of this legislation that I think is very important and is a win not only for both houses of the legislature, but certainly for the taxpayers and for the state employees that are in the public employees retirement system. This bill creates a new Tier 5 for all new state employees beginning March the 1st of next year. It addresses the almost $27 billion unfunded liability in the PERS system and provides some stability. It prevents further growth in liabilities, and the current enrollees, those who are in the system prior to this date, will continue to receive the benefits they were promised, including the 13th check. And then moving forward, the new employees will know what their system is, and it circumvents what has been a growing concern in state government, that if the unfunded liability continued to grow, it would at some point become untenable. So this was a very important part of this legislation as well. And when you look back over the bill, taxpayers ought to be saving somewhere around $128 million in grocery tax savings. They should be getting $215 million in infrastructure funding for roads and bridges. It also keeps Mississippi's gas tax in comparison with the rest of the country very reasonable. We're not to the high end of that, and there simply just aren't very many options for highway money in Mississippi without going there. The influx of electric cars and the difference in that system makes it almost a foregone conclusion that that's the only spot the legislature could go. And in settling the bill, there was a sales tax increase in House Bill 1, and that didn't appear in the final version. But there are some additional pieces of legislation out there that will provide some other funding improvements. It adjusts the state's rainy day fund up 2% from 10% to 12%, and then increases it again in the year 2030 to 13%, which is basically a savings account for the taxpayers. They put money aside for the proverbial rainy day, and of course in government it's raining almost every day, and so having that additional savings is very fiscally responsible for the state of Mississippi. So overall, it's hard to look at this plan and not feel like pretty good day's work when the negotiators from the House and Senate were able to get together on this.
Let's change topics just a bit because I don't want to run out of time before we talk about this. A little bit of a home business for you. State Board of Education recently made a recommendation about the Mississippi School for Mathematics and Science, and that's some good news for Mississippi State, isn't it?
It is, and the university is very pleased that the State Board of Education saw the merit in the proposal we submitted at the request of the State Board. And, of course, there's some additional business to be done in terms of the legislature funding that move. But we are very pleased that the State Board did see the obvious merit in our proposal. We and of course we didn't seek this out. This was a move that I think germinated in the legislature for a couple of years, and then the State Board took it up. But we do feel that Mississippi State University, the state's leading research university, and a place that offers advanced degrees in science and mathematics, is a great place for this facility to be housed, and that we can offer MS students just outstanding experience here on our campus. So we are excited about it, and we're watching as the other side of the story develops in the legislature. But we're cautiously optimistic that this is going to happen, and that we've got a really great challenge for our campus to make these students feel as welcome as the partnership school students that we're already taking care of. We have a middle school that is really a jewel and is sort of the school of the future already on campus. We're already taking care of those students and providing them a great experience along with the local school district here, the Octavia Hall Starkville Public Schools. So, yeah, we are excited, and we're looking forward to moving forward.
Now, how long will this process take? Let's say, and of course the legislative process, the funding process, is going to take whatever time it takes. Let's just put it like that. Once we get past that point, what's the timeline? How long will it take to execute this move and get this facility and these students officially relocated completely to Mississippi State? Do we know?
At this point, I really think that that's a decision for the legislature based on their funding timeline and additional guidance from the State Board. But the approval, the recommendation based on the RFP would move that along as soon as the funding can be secured. So I would not be comfortable, second guessing the legislature on this, but it's a move that we think puts a great facility in a great venue.
Well, and it's really matching up the goals of both the School for Mathematics and Science and Mississippi State. It's a merging of two like things going in the same direction. So it seems, from the outside looking in, seems like a fantastic idea to me.
We believe so, and we're really excited about the opportunity we have to embrace these students. And again, we've got some experiences here that we think they and their parents will really be excited about. So this has been a good week.
A lot of stuff, and this, talking about the funding, it's the same thing that we saw, I believe, with the tax reform legislation. There's discussion, and it's going, and you wonder when it's going to happen, and then all at once it'll happen. That, again, is kind of how things work, isn't it?
It is, and, we're obviously very grateful to the members of the State Board of Education and Dr. Lance Evans for they were really helpful to us in navigating the RFP process and being able to put our best foot forward in that proposal. A lot of credit, obviously, to Dr. Mark Keenum, our president, and to our provost, Dr. David Shaw, and others who were intimately involved with that proposal. But we're really excited about it. Really excited.
Well, Sid, before you go, I just have to say, I know that you live and breathe politics. You love this stuff. Do you ever wish you could just, at this point, have one day where there wasn't just major explosions across the board in terms of politics? It seems like every day is an event.
Well, I guess some days it's easy to think that, and then I watch Dr. Keenum navigate his daily waters, and I realize, I'm in good shape. But it has been an interesting year, federal level, state level, and we have some local issues as well. So always fun, and always appreciate an opportunity to talk with the SuperTalk audience.
Anytime you have the time, we'd love to have you. Sid Salter, Vice President for Strategic Communication and the Director of Public Affairs at Mississippi State University. Always welcome through our doors. The final segment of the 7 o'clock hour of Mornings on SuperTalk right after this.
Get the inside track on Mississippi politics. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Well, I done got old. I can't do the things I used to do. I'm old man.
Welcome back. Super Talk, Mississippi Mornings on a Friday morning. Dave Hughes here. Just a couple of things I want to kind of bunch in here, if you will. Of course, as you know, President Trump signed the executive order yesterday to start the process of dismantling the Department of Education. And depending on who you talk to, it's either the biggest tragedy that's ever happened in the history of America, or it's the best thing that's ever happened in the history of America. Yeah, we know how that process plays out. We'll wait and see. They're talking about returning the money back to the states, which again goes back into what Sid was talking about with the revenue discussion. That would be more federal revenue coming to the state of Mississippi, of course, for education. But it'll be interesting to see. But I saw something that I loved yesterday on X. Someone took a picture of the Louisiana Supreme Court, and they've got this thing. It looks to me like they're projecting the seal of the Supreme Court of Louisiana on the big blue curtain behind it. It might be printed on there, but it looks like it's projected. Either way, it doesn't matter. On that big seal above the heads of the justices at the Louisiana Supreme Court, it misspells Louisiana. It says Supreme Court of Louisna. Now, people started posting this saying, this is going on and you want to eliminate the Department of Education? They thought they had a point, but instead they're getting slammed because the exact immediate response from thousands of people was, no, we've had the Department of Education since 1979, and this is the result. This is why we want to change it. This is exactly the reason. Which I think has some validity to it. If you remember, Reagan really wanted to get rid of the Department of Education. That was one of his big pushes that he made. And we're back to that point again. We'll see how this process plays out. But I do want to comment, Trump is a consummate showman. I don't know, Lance, did you see the video of the signing ceremony yesterday for that executive order?
No. There's so many that he signed, and he has the huge pen, and he does it. He does it. It's a production.
No, this was fantastic because surrounding him, it was like 8-10 kids on either side of him in rows because they each had their own little desk. set up, and each one of them had their own pen and their own smaller copy of the executive order, and they all signed theirs when he signed his. It was theater. It was showmanship at its finest, and if there's one area, there's plenty of them, but if there's one area Trump excels in, it's showmanship. It's putting on a show and calling attention to things, and I just wanted to call that out because I thought it was spectacular the way he did that.
I wanted to mention, too, and since we're on education, I mean, a lot of folks, a lot of hand-wringing and upsettedness, and then some people extremely excited about getting rid of the Department of Education or the prospect of it. But, you know, the early origins goes back to 1867. This is not a new debate, people. This is one that's been going on, a political hot potato, for over 150 years. Andrew Johnson signed the legislation creating the first Department of Education, aiming to collect information and statistics about the schools. Then in 1868, a year later, the Department of Education was demoted to the Office of Education because people were worried that the federal government had too much control over local schools. Then in 79, Carter reestablished it in 80 to a cabinet-level position, became official in 1980. And again, it goes on and on. You know, you have this political hot potato where what is the right way to do this? What's the wrong way to do this? But one of the main things that we can say is that the ability for the student to achieve higher results has not been a result of the Department of Education.
Right.
And so if that's your goal, if it's to create a better student or more resources going to the student and this, that, and the other, that is not actually what's happened. Now, I'm sure they've collected lots of information and useful and useless statistics, but at the end of the day, we're not educating people at a better clip than we ever have. So,
well, and I feel like you probably owe everyone an apology because you gave me the perfect opening to go back to my favorite pet thing. The Department of Education is a fantastic example of what I consider to be one of the biggest problems in government and society right now, which is focusing on the process and not the result.
Well, a lot of jobs are created, right?
Right. The result should be improve education, get better results for our kids. Instead, as Linda McMahon said yesterday on Fox News after the signing, out of every dollar that goes to the Department of Education, 47 cents is spent on regulatory practices.
Yeah, somebody has a job that doesn't need a job to be doing that kind of work. 47 cents, about half of what you got.
Yeah, roughly half of the money that goes to the Department of Education goes to uphold regulations and rules and things that, well, I'm sorry, if you judge by the results between 1980 and now, they're not there. It ain't working. And so if it's not working,
just throw more money at it.
Yeah, or get rid of it is the common sense approach and try a different way of doing things, which is the entire impetus behind this discussion to begin with. It's not going to fix itself by doing more of what isn't working. And that's the argument that some people...
Keeping Mississippi in the know, one morning at a time. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
I try to call you, but on the midnight watch I realize why twice you ran away. Think about how many times I have fallen. Spirits are using me, larger voices calling.
Welcome back. Super Talk Mississippi Mornings with Richard Cross without Richard Cross on this Friday morning. Dave Hughes here. The last hour of Mornings with Richard Cross brought to you by MWG Employer Services. You can call them today at 601-206-7966 or go to MWGEmployerServices.com to find out more. We are joined now by the spokesman for AAA Mississippi, and he's already smiling, and I know why, because I filled up this week. Don Redman joins us. Don, how you doing today?
I'm doing really good, thank you.
Gas prices seem to be moving in the correct direction for us, aren't they?
Yeah, we're about 42 cents cheaper now than we were a year ago. But motorists probably have seen prices go up a little bit in the past week or two. We're talking about 4 cents in Mississippi. But this is expected this time of the year.
Well, it's spring break month. People are getting out and traveling. And as we get closer and closer to summer and the peak travel times, one of them anyway, you see that. That's just a supply and demand thing, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The demand during the June, July are the highest you'll see on the calendar.
Now, what that means is, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Don, we have a tendency, I don't know if you've noticed this, on every issue out there right now, we have a tendency to make a snap judgment at every little minuscule change. If you see prices go up, that may not mean what you have decided to get angry about. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, it's a fair statement. Especially this time of the year, we see usually in March into April, we make a transition of different types of gasoline. We have a gasoline blend for the winter, which is less volatile or more volatile than what you'll see in the summer. The summer blend burns cleaner. So what happens is we're making a transition at the refineries, getting rid of the old type of gasoline, getting ready for the summer gasoline. That pause of production by refineries, it usually runs the prices up, but it's temporary.
That makes perfect sense, and that I wanted to make sure we made that point and explained it, because if you start seeing prices go back up a little bit, a lot of people are going to fall apart. You know how that works. So we've become very sensitive to these things.
I think we need to pay a lot of attention what's going to happen on April 2nd with Canada and the U.S. with a 10% tariff. That's going to really affect particularly the Northeast section of the country that rely heavily on fuel from Canada. But Canada is our largest partner in oil exports, or oil imports, excuse me, we're getting from Canada. So if there's a tariff war on those petroleum products, it's going to be higher for us.
That will raise the price just a little bit, which was expected. We knew that was going to happen if that goes into effect on April 2nd. And it's continuing to look like it will. But again, everything changes by the hour these days. So we'll just have to wait until April 2nd and see what actually happens.
You're right. It's a very news-driven product. And keep in mind that the price we're paying now are what future investors are looking at will be in the next 6 weeks. So right now they're not freaking out about the potential tariff war with Canada. I think most people believe this thing will be resolved before April 2nd.
Now, how are things going with OPEC? Because I know that does have an impact on prices and on the markets as well. What's going on over there?
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what they decide, because they're looking at potential peace in Ukraine, the tariff war in Canada and the U.S., and it'll be interesting to see what they decide to do. I think they're going to cut production. The reason I brought up Ukraine is that if there is peace, that's going to put Russian oil on the market for everyone. No limitations. And so that's going to drive prices down. And so I think OPEC's going to talk about cutting back on production.
This is a lot more complicated than just the number you see on the pump when you pull up, and a lot of people don't realize it. There's a lot of moving pieces here, Don.
Yeah, there really is. And like I say, it's driven by the news of the day.
Well, and it will continue to be driven by the news of the day, especially with the Trump administration. Overall, if you had to give it a letter grade, A to B, I don't want to even give you the option for F, but it is on the table. A to F, letter grade, in terms of the impact of the Trump administration and their policies in the first 2 months for the automobile and the gas industry, what letter would you give them?
Yeah, I think that at least psychologically what he's done for the market has really put it on steroids. They're very positive. The production isn't changed yet. but it may be coming. I think it's just the deregulation is going to have the biggest impact. I think that as far as consumers are concerned, this would be a B plus. And the reason I didn't give an A is because of the questions about Canada and Mexico. They're our biggest trading partners in terms of petroleum products. So there's so many questions on that. That's why I can't give them an A.
Well, it's kind of like the old head coach philosophy. There's always room for improvement.
That's right.
I'll be honest, especially in junior high, if I had come home with a B plus, my mom would have turned her first ever cartwheel. She would have been excited by that. So it's not a bad grade. It's not a bad grade at all.
It's not a bad grade. No, I'm considering where we were.
Well, that's the thing, because we're not that far removed. It seems like forever ago. We're not that far removed from having seen $4 a gallon gas in the state of Mississippi. That was just a few years ago that we had that. So we have made monumental strides in the right direction, I think. What we have to do now is, well, what would you say? Buckle up, hold on tight as we get ready to head into the summertime travel season, because if everything that we have seen in the last 6 months to a year is an indication, travel's going to be up this year. I know at Christmas, I think we set a record for travel, and I would expect that's going to happen this year. Do you think that price is going to help support possibly record travel?
We saw record travel last year despite higher prices, but what we have found in the past is that it's the state of the economy is what really drives vacations more than just the price of gasoline. However, if it's a long period of time that we're saving 40, 50 cents a gallon of gasoline, our fuel price, annual fuel price cost goes down, I absolutely believe this could be another banner year in terms of travel. And it's because of lower fuel, what it does to the family budget.
Well, and the ironic part about that, when travel increases, that gives the economy a shot in the arm, because when you travel, you don't just use gas. You're using hotels, you're using restaurants, you're using stores, you're using so much money that gets spent when you're traveling that contributes to that rising tide that raises all the ships, I think.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And what we saw in some of the travel trends, though last year they were traveling record numbers, they were cutting back, maybe not staying as long, maybe staying at a cheaper hotel, dining in rather than going out to the restaurants. So if they have more money in their pocket for their vacation, you're right, it's going to spread throughout the economy.
If you had one wish request you could make for things right now, what would you like to see happen to improve things in terms of travel and gas and all of that for the state of Mississippi?
Well, this may not necessarily have anything to do with gasoline, but it really has to do with our behavior behind the wheel. Mississippi leads the nation, or actually second behind Rhode Island, in the terms of traffic fatalities. My best wish would be everybody would just set the phone down and leave it alone until they reach their destination.
And it's amazing how things change, because for the longest time, the push and the topic of conversation was buckle up. You got to buckle your seatbelt. You got to buckle your seatbelt. Well, we've improved on that quite a bit. It doesn't hurt that a lot of vehicles require you to buckle up now before the car will go anywhere. That was a good change. But now it has changed, and as you said, it's distracted driving. Put the phone down. You don't need to be surfing the internet while you're driving down the road. And we see, is that getting better, or is that problem becoming worse?
Well, looking at some of the information we're getting from Cambridge Telematics, mobile telematics, which tracks people behavior, it's not getting any better. In fact, using your mobile phone to actually talk on the phone is one of the least things we do with it. We're actually shopping while we're driving. No, we're getting worse.
It all comes back to what I have always referred to as Dave's rule of defense.
Know where the news is going next. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Super Talk, Mississippi. Always enjoy talking to Don Redman with AAA Mississippi. Always some good information. Be careful out there. Put the phone down. Don't do anything stupid. I know it's a big ask.
That's a cool thing to do now, Dave, is to ride in the left lane while you're on your phone doing 42 miles an hour and acting like nothing is going on in the world but whatever is going on your phone. And oh, my God.
Well, phones,
I get so sick of seeing it, dude. That is a pet peeve of mine.
Phones, and don't get me wrong, I have always been a proponent of technology. I've always been an early adopter. But we have reached the point to where phones have become an addiction to people. That's why you see people driving down the road using their phone. Half the time, it's not a conscious thought for them to pick up the phone and start scrolling on it. That's just what they do anytime they don't have anything going on.
Yeah.
And I think that has led to part of our problems in a somewhat unexpected way. With it being an addiction, with it being something that you use to fill every available second that you used to feel, being bored, thinking, contemplating, making plans, all that's out the window because there might be another funny cat video available. Let me go check real quick. And as a result, we've kind of become stagnant culturally.
Yeah, it is definitely that. I mean, it seems to me, and I was watching some historical stuff on YouTube the other day. I love research and digging around in the old stuff, and it was going through each decade and the distinct culture that America represented, possessed, and really embraced through each decade, starting in about the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. And then you get to 99, 2000, and really it's just an amalgamation of junk now. It's like everything is just like, there's a little piece of everything, but there's nothing specific. There's nothing that really you go, that makes them American. The music is all homogenized, and everything's trying to get put into some gender basket of whatever you want to call it, acceptability. Everybody gets a trophy. Nobody, it's just weird to me growing up in an atmosphere and an environment where we had commercials, and I was sending you some during the break, where you had like Redman and Terry Bradshaw taking a big chunk of Redman out on the field and plugging it in. And, man, this is the best tasting chawing tobacco on the planet. Then you got the two dudes in the boat out there fishing, and one guy reaches and gets a big chaw. You had the Busch beer commercials, some of the greatest Milwaukee's. But what do we have now? Sky Rizzy.
Who now?
Yeah,
what?
Sky Rizzy and all these, pharmaceutical commercials. The creativity too is gone in some ways.
Well, yeah. Oh, it has gone. It's been homogenized out of everything because everything has been boiled down to a formula.
Yeah.
But what you were
the
talking
algorithm.
about, yes, with the different decades. If I put it like this. If I told you to think about, and I don't need a name, I don't need a specific one, but something will come to your mind, a song from the 40s, a very particular style would come into mind immediately. From the 50s, you got Bill Haley, Rock Around the Clock, all of the, the very beginnings of rock and roll, Elvis, all of that. The 60s, you have a very definite idea. The 70s, the 80s, the 90s. Every one of those had a musical identity. From 2000 until now, 25 years later, 2.5 decades, it's all one big amorphous mass of mess.
Well, even like the clothes. The 80s brought in such amazing, like everything you could ever imagine that was crazy that you could put on, you wore it. And that was the 80s. Shoulder pads and Conair hairspray and, tight rolled this. There was distinct character to your wardrobe. Even if you only had 2 shirts and 2 pair of pants, boy, you wore that and you looked different than other people. And I don't know if you were intentionally doing that. It was just, it seems that the choices weren't so homogenous, as you said.
Right, because if doing a little inside baseball here, but if you look at radio, how many stations have you heard that their positioning statement is the best hits of the 80s, 90s, and today? The 80s and 90s is 20 years. Today is 25 and counting. That's because you can't define it. Tell me what sound we were into from 2000 to 2009. Or from 2010 to 2019. There is no identity anymore. And I have to wonder if that doesn't lead to some of our cultural problems, because we are desperately craving some kind of identity, some kind of something we can latch onto to help build our sense of self. And since we don't have it there, we decided we're just going to argue about every single little thing, whether it matters or not.
Well, I guess that's some of the first world problems that you encounter. And I want folks to remember this. All of our ancestors, all of them, everybody, they left the place where they had family and DNA. They had roots for generations, maybe even thousands of years, where folks have lived in some place that they said, I don't want to be here anymore. Whether they messed it up or whether the people they elected or chose or took the power and the land messed it up. So we don't want to be here anymore. And they came here. And you created a country out of nothing. And what I get upset about is when we look at Europe and certain places and we go, we want to emulate their culture. Why? Americans need to be Americans. We don't need to look backwards from where we had left. The problems that are resurfacing again in a place like Europe, the same issues they've had since time infinitum. A bunch of folks with different languages that hate each other unless you make them get along for a minute in some military pact. But at the end, why are we so worried about what in the heck Europe does and the culture and this and that? We need to get away from that and get back to being Americans. Build things people want. Go to work. Educate. Move forward and quit looking backwards at stuff we've left in the rearview mirror.
I'll tell you how all of this ties together. What you were just talking about, what I was talking about with the music, what we were talking about with the culture and the lack of decadal identity. There's a fancy sounding term I just made up. Yeah. You won't find that in the book anywhere because that just came out. But all of that is driven and helped along by one thing. America was founded. All of those different musical styles and entertainment styles and everything else were created and became popular because people were willing and able and in a lot of cases longing to get outside of their comfort zone. We have now reached the point where everyone feels like their personal comfort zone is a right guaranteed to them by the universe. We have to get back to having the ability to leave your comfort zone, because if you think about it, America was founded because a bunch of people said, oh, heck with this. As you said, I'm going to leave behind everyone and everything I've ever known, go someplace and start from scratch. That is the definition of getting outside of your comfort zone, and look what it turned into, and we've lost that.
Yeah, and you look at some of the issues a place like Canada has, where you have 2 languages, 2 distinct cultures, everything's, it's divided. And, I have a pet peeve of going to a bank, and I have to choose English. Okay, yes. There's 2.3% of the state of Mississippi are immigrants. I didn't say Latin American immigrants, 2.3%. Why do I have to choose Spanish or English? What are we going to do, add Chinese and Cyrillic and all this? Because when does it stop? At what point do you go, well, and I'm for the English is the official language of this country. And we have, over 60% of the people in this country believe that as well. But 2.3% of the people in this state are what you would call, immigrants, recent. Well, and I've got to make a decision on whether I want to choose Spanish or English. Guess what? When I lived in your country where you speak Spanish, I learned Spanish. How about you try that one? Learn some English.
The thing is, this goes back to what I was just saying, because we have to make sure they don't have to leave their comfort zone.
Yeah, of course.
And the people that put these policies into place and these ideas and these procedures, well, they don't want to think about somebody having a hard time, which is their comfort zone. Right. So everything is designed around keeping everybody as comfortable and as easy as possible.
You're a winner, Dave. You get a trophy.
You can't start a fire without friction. That's why we're all freezing to death culturally.
Well, and going back to Tesla, and you got rockets exploding and all this stuff. Let me say this: when you're pushing the edge and you're testing and trying and becoming innovative, you're gonna break a few eggs. But you're trying. You're seeing the limits of your ability. And that's what you're pushing through. As Americans, we're going to have to get back to doing one thing, and that's pushing the limits of our ability to do more, not just for us, myself, but for the country, and putting the country first again, rather than my specific little globe that I live in.
I would just like to say Elon has the perfect description of rocket explosions. He calls them rapid, unscheduled disassemblies. That is the best phrase I've ever heard. Yeah. Oh, man. We will continue on this Friday morning on Mornings here on SuperTalk Mississippi right after this.
No filibuster. Just everything you need to know to start your day smarter. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
And we're back to that. Welcome back. Super Talk Mississippi Mornings. Dave Hughes in for Richard Cross on Fridays as usual, and we are trending back in that direction. You started that at exactly the right part, Lance. Thank you for that.
Long-haired freaky people need not.
Republicans in Arkansas have introduced a bill, House Bill 1668, that would hold liable any person who knowingly causes a minor's social transition. Penalties from $10,000 up to $10 million in damages for gender-affirming care. Okay, that's fine as far as it goes. But we have to be careful that we don't take it to a ridiculous extreme, and that we don't pay attention to the wording, because the wording in that bill they have introduced up there includes changes to clothing or hairstyle. If your boy's hair gets too long, well, that could be $10,000 to $10 million in damages. What? That seems a bit extreme. That seems a bit too conformist for my taste. The gender-affirming care for minors, yeah, that's fine. I'm sorry. I've seen plenty of grown women. I'm talking, in the church ladies muffin club, the respectable ones, the ones that are always dressed to the nines and just wonderful women and fantastic grandmas, got a real short, tight hairdo. Well, does that apply to them? Well, no, they're not a minor. But if we're not careful, we're going to let this slip to a ridiculous place again.
Yeah, and we don't want Sharia law in Christian form.
Right, which is kind of, this is the first tiny baby step in that direction. If you don't watch the language, like we were talking with Sid and like we talked about back in the 6 o'clock hour with the tax reform bill in Mississippi, instead of saying 85%, there are reports that says 0.85% on revenue.
Devil's in the details, brother, huh?
Yes, and you go by the way the law is written. And if you put in clothing, so they're talking about now a kid can be fined for wearing the wrong T-shirt or having the wrong hairstyle. Somebody's going to pay damages for that. I don't agree with that. I will never agree with that. That's extreme.
Yeah, I mean, I loved my parachute pants and my Union Jack sleeveless shirt and my racetrack Vans and my spiked haircut when I was 12 years old. That was the coolest thing. When I looked in the mirror, I was like, "You're a dude, man."
Yes.
And we had one of our listeners said parachute pants, Derek in Greenwood. Yes, I had the red pair and I had the black pair. I thought I was Michael Jackson, man. Zippers everywhere, doing the moonwalk. What do we do now? Where is all that?
my parachute pants, I had two pair, black and blue.
You had the blue one,
a dark navy blue.
Oh man, how cool.
But you had to have the bandana tied around your knee. Everybody. I didn't know anybody in the 80s. I was in high school in the 80s, the early 80s. I didn't know any guy that didn't have long hair.
Yeah.
That's
Shaggy,
just the way
long.
it worked.
You had multiple styles too. You had the feathered look. Remember the feathered? Yeah.
Here's a mental image no one wants, and I'm going to gift this to you to haunt you for your entire weekend. Mine was long in the back and permed just on the bottom of the back and spiked on top.
Exactly. You had a roll call going on. You were nailing everything there. You had the perm, the spike. You had it all going on. Yeah.
But with this self-righteous language and this bill being introduced in Arkansas, that would have been a problem.
Hear banjo music, kind of when you start talking like that. It's like boing, 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 boing.
Right.
You're like, hold on now. That's not where we need to be going with this. But
I just wanted to call that out to remind everyone, in your zeal, in your fervor to do the right thing, you can make mistakes and cause big problems.
Well, there's no room for bigotry or racism. I don't care what color you are. Not liking somebody else because of color is insanity. And I'll say that. I mean, white people that hate this or hate that because of this color, it's insanity. It is. You need to check up and get a mental checkup. For anyone that looks at somebody else and says, "Hey, I don't like you because you're a white guy or you're a black person," that's so childish, and the mindset of thinking is so elementary that I hope that people understand that we've come a long way in our history. That there's no place to go back to that. And separate but equal, all that. It's never going to work, and you can't stay separate and get along. It's never so. Division is not a good thing.
Well, you put your finger right on the problem that I had with this particular bill. House Bill 1668 in Arkansas. The bill itself, I don't have a problem with. It's the fact that they went a little too far with the language and made it a bit too broad. Because I'm sorry, you nailed it. Dictating whether or not you're going to be punished for what you're wearing or how you wear your hair, that is step one towards Sharia law. It's the same. That's what they do. Women have a certain way they have to dress. They have to have their head covered. They, all of these things that we don't want to go down that path. We don't want to do that.
Like Mike and Simpson said, he had ruse shoes. I remember, if you wore ruse, are you going to be in trouble?
Right,
what is acceptable there?
Because I've been using shirt as a shorthand. It says clothing, changes to clothing or hairstyle. In other words, a girl or a boy can't go through a period where they decide on a different style. That's a problem, and somebody needs to pay damages. No, sit down and shut up if that's your attitude.
I'm 100% with you. Look, the moment that we, as a country, state by state, decided to allow government, whether state or federal, to be our daddy, is the point where we lost something very, very dear to us. It's in our DNA, and we've got to get back to some form of ability to distinguish between the needs that are out there for those that truly have needs, and that is government's job. And I had a great friend and a great mayor. His name was Pat Patterson, and he goes, "Look, man, you run as a Democrat or Republican, but it doesn't have much bearing in municipal politics. What my job is to take care of the people that need to be taken care of, that truly have needs. That you got to define that. You got to find those that truly have a need. That's how you're governed, and that's how you're measured by your society. How do you take care of those that are the least fortunate? Are you just going to keep them poor and keep them fed and barely enough so that they're just happy? That's not enough, folks. That's not enough. We have to break that way of thinking where personal accomplishment must supersede getting a gift from somebody else across the country. And again, I think that there are people that have needs, and we need to make sure that we're taking care of those. But most people don't need government to do anything for them. They need to go do it for themselves.
Ronald Reagan popularized an old expression. He actually said it on Johnny Carson. If you remember a month or two ago, I had you play some Johnny Carson from an old show when Reagan was on there. And he said, people look to government to fix their problems and don't stop to realize government is the problem.
Yes. Yeah.
He said, if we would shut Washington down and send everybody home for a few weeks, nobody would miss them. And
take about 2 days.
Yeah, he wasn't wrong. And that, I think, is a danger in the current cultural movement.
I made this point.
We're getting some great things done, some things that have needed to be done for decades, but we can also take that too far.
Well, I made this point yesterday, and I'm going to make it again. People would not have a problem as much as they do today with giving government their money, their hard-earned money, in whatever form you're taxed. There wouldn't be many complaints if everything was fixed, if everything was humming along and it was efficient and you didn't have fat and all this other stuff you're dealing with. But that's not the case. So you have a retraction of people and their trust in government because government has let them down. And that is why the movement you see with reduction in taxes and all these things, Department of Education, and because government's failed you. And people have the backbone now to stand up and say that in front of a TV and have the wherewithal to maybe do something about that. But remember that your trust in government, it's just like the stock market. It goes up and down. Some days you're buying it, some days you're selling it. And right now, most people have been selling the government for quite some time, whether it's your federal government, in many cases, sometimes state agencies and state governments. But the trust in government is low.
Well, and that is contributing to this cultural problem that I'm talking about, because especially for the past 4 years, but over the past 20, 30 years, really, culturally, government has been sticking its nose further and further into things and moving things in a really weird direction. The girls' 400-meter varsity race at the Portland Interscholastic League meet in Oregon over the weekend, a dude won it. Finished 7 seconds ahead of his second place finisher in that race. He got
put that on a clock. When you put that on your watch and see how far that is.
And was just standing there when second place finally got to the line.
Low five.
We're tired of that. The problem is we're going to have additional different and, in my opinion, equally bad problems if we overcorrect too far in the other direction.
Try to unwind that, right.
And telling a 14-year-old how they can wear their hair and what shirt they can put on kind of fits in that definition to me. Just my thought. Let's narrow that down just a little bit. Final segment of mornings. I'm just determined to kick every sacred cow I can find this morning, but they make the best hamburger. We will continue and wrap it up on this Friday right after this on SuperTalk Mississippi.
From the better. Pour yourself a cup of coffee and get the Magnolia State's most important news of the day. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back. SuperTalk Mississippi. Time to make you hungry. We're spending more time in the kitchen and more time around the table. Pork makes it possible with thousands of delicious dishes from around the world. Bacon and all the ones in second place. Sorry, I'm a bacon fan, always will be.
Bacon is love.
100% real pork, brought to you by America's pig farmers. Discover new flavors at pork.org/realpork, my new favorite website. I didn't even know that existed until now. Talking about spending more time in the kitchen. With the economy being what it is, a lot of people are eating at home, but there are some people who are not. And this is the most, I'm going to be honest, it's the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard. DoorDash has signed an agreement with Klarna so that if you order food to be delivered to your house from a restaurant, you can pay for it in 4 installments. Now process that for just a second. If you're scheduling payments to order out for food, have you looked in the pantry? When's the last time you had a sandwich? Something.
One you made.
A can of Vienna sausages, something, anything other than going into a timed payment agreement for delivery of food. That seems a little bit ridiculous. It's a sign of the times. It's a sign of the economy. But if you're considering that, my thought is you might need to possibly take a look at your budget and change some of your behaviors. Yeah. You don't want to. You shouldn't have to, but...
well, hey, when your federal government doesn't have to balance its checkbook, why do you have to do that, Dave?
That is a very good point. That is an excellent point, and I don't have a good answer for that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we've talked about many times on this show and with you we all know that there's fraud and waste and corruption in government, and for every dollar or 47 cents out of a dollar that does not get to the desired, target, it's waste. And again, remember, that money didn't get burned up in a fire somewhere. It got put in somebody else's pocket.
Yes.
That's how it works. When somebody says, I lost something, no, you didn't lose it. I mean, we know right where it is. It's just not in your pocket anymore.
It's right over there. They took and formed it into the shape of a yacht.
Yeah, or whatever it may be, but that's it. And that, I'm with you on the government waste and corruption and fraud, and we need to correct that. We definitely. I mean, look at what we're finding now in 2 months, 3 months of work. I mean, come on. And everybody out there that hates Elon Musk is obviously got some skin in the game. They're a little bit worried, huh?
This is the level of logic that's going on. I don't know if you heard about this. This happened yesterday. The Court of Appeals in the state of New York officially upheld a law that was passed for New York City, making it illegal for non-citizens to vote. It had been challenged 3 times, 3 different motions made against that law that said, if you're not a citizen, you can't vote. 3 times it was challenged. The courts upheld it, and people are upset about that. Why?
Exactly.
Well, we all know why, don't we?
And we know what side of the fence is upset about it, too.
Yes.
One great point here made by James in Oxford. What about layaway? Yeah, I remember layaway. I remember going with Mama to like Sears and stuff and going and putting stuff on layaway. Now, that's a new concept, though. Maybe there could be layaway for like your fast food. I want a burger Friday. I'm going to make a payment of $1 a day. This is Sunday. And is that where we're going?
Yes. Well, and the problem is, though, if you remember, I know you remember this, the way layaway worked. You went in and you picked out your stuff. You did your shopping like you normally would, and then you took it to the back of the store, whichever one it was.
And they laid it away, huh?
And they stuck it back in the back with your name on it, wrapped it all up and bagged it with your name on it, and then you made payments along until you paid it off, and then they gave you your stuff you had picked out.
You didn't get the company credit card from Belk or whatever it is. It was just a layaway plan.
That's not going to work with a large pizza. It's not going to be edible by the time you pay it off. So
they cook it, sit it back in the back, wrap it up in some foil. Whenever you're ready to pay it off, you come on back and get it.
When you finally do that, the pepperoni are going to look at you and go, "Hey, good to see ya. Let's go."
Yeah, I like that. I'll gladly pay you Thursday for a hamburger today.
Yes,
yeah, exactly.
We have now entered the wimpy economy. And I'm not sure that's where we want to head, but that's where we're at for whatever reason. Buddy, I have enjoyed this as always.
Always enjoy hanging with you, man. It'd been too long.
Yeah, and, again, raising blood pressure is one of the few hobbies I have time left for.
Good,
so
good. Get you some of that.
We'll continue
and eat some
doing
bacon
that.
with a side of bacon this weekend.
Yes, but I will get that bacon in 4 easy installment payments.
Please do. Yeah, those things are expensive now.
I would like to say, as a society, as a culture, we've lost our mind, but that happened several years ago. We're just playing out the string, I think, at this point.
Chris Rock says, "Give me 1 rib. How much is it for 1 rib?"
Half a rib. Can I lick it? That's all I need. Have a great weekend. Stay safe. Put your phone down in the car. And we'll talk again next week. Lance, you have a good weekend, buddy.
Same to you, bro.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.